So, good evening and welcome to another episode 29 of Secrets of the Obvious. And thank you for sending in your questions, and I'll answer them to the best of my ability. So, let's start right away with question number one. Hi, Lou. Why is it that young people are not interested in A Course in Miracles or other non dual teachings? My children seem to hate spirituality as much as I hated religion when I was young. Can you give us an explanation on this? Yeah, it's pretty obvious. We all come here to set up our forgiveness lessons. We come into form in order to overcome the unforgiven thoughts of our mind. Now remember, every human being is a thought in form projection of the one dreaming mind, of our dreaming mind. And so the dreaming mind has thought up of billions of ways as to how to maximize pleasure and minimize suffering. It is in search of eternal happiness in a way that it can then prove to Source or God that it can be happy without God. It can find an alternative way. It hasn't. And once the mind fell asleep and fractured into billions of thoughts, these thoughts have taken form and each one plays out its script of forgetfulness. And that's the journey away from source energy or the memory of self, the memory of ourself as the extension of God. Once we return or start our journey returning to remembering what we are, you know, trying to reconnect with the source of life, and we start on the journey of trying to understand the nature of self and the nature of true reality, we then undergo a series of progressive steps in linear time to self-realization or awakening to self. In the incarnation process, what that means is we set up lessons in order to understand what we are through the experience of what we're not. That means that in our formative years, we have to set up a series of experiences where we experience what we don't want: abandonment, rejection, um, not feeling good enough, not feeling worthy, the fear of failure, the fear of unworthiness. And so we set up these lessons in our formative years, carefully scripted by ourself and our Holy Spirit, in order for us to, at some stage, get to a tipping point where we turn inwards and we start to search for, what am I? There must be another way. So young kids have come up with, and first of all, there's very little ego going on, but there's programming happening. And so they have to set up their lessons in order to feel the disappointments, the rejections, the sense of unworthiness. And so then at some stage, when they get into their later years, it could be in their 20s, very often in their 30s, and mostly in their 40s and 50s, when they really start the inward journey as to asking, what am I? Why am I here? And so they're meant to go out and play, and they're not meant to be interested in spirituality. It's only the really advanced thoughts and forms, souls that come into projection with a curiosity at a very young age as to what is the nature of reality. But think about it. Most people in their 40s and 50s, if you look back on your childhood years or your teenage years, you weren't really interested. If you were raised religious, you were taught what God is and whatever the deity was, and you were taught the dogmas, but you weren't really interested in the nature of true reality. When did you become interested in the nature of self and the nature of true reality? When did you become spiritual? When things started to fail, when things didn't go your way. It's only then that we turn inwards. And if you then look at the obstacles to peace, you'll realize, if you timeline it, they were set up by yourself, since you dreamed this whole thing up. And they were set up for your formative years. You had the imprints in your formative years, which you then try and overcome in your later years. If you look very closely and you observe what everybody goes through, you realize everybody's going through those 5 moves of separation, which is first forgetfulness, not realizing or remembering what you are, then the sense of abandonment, feeling rejected, and then you get into the self-worth issues. Was I not good enough? Am I not good enough? And of course, then you project that into your physicality, and it's either to do with your looks or your intelligence or your abilities. And so then the journey starts of seeking a sense of peace, seeking a sense of self-worth, seeking a sense of permanent happiness. So no, children will not be interested in non-duality, because they have to set themselves up for future failure, just as you did. And so don't be too upset that your children are not interested in spirituality, and you think you've progressed because you're no longer, forcing them or indoctrinating them in religious dogma. Well, spiritual dogma is no different to religious dogma. Don't think spirituality is in any way more awake or more enlightened than religion. It's all the same. Ultimately, religion, no religion, spirituality, no spirituality. It's all about the awareness of self and what constitutes happiness, but the knowing of self, um, and being at peace with self, and being at peace with what you have. When are people unhappy? When they resist the current situation, when they resist what they have, when their dreams haven't come true and what they really wished for themselves didn't play out the way they wished it had. Children are still playing out. They still live in hope. They still have the excitement and the enthusiasm of the future. And it's only when you get older and you realize your life's coming to an end and you maybe got 20 or 30 years left or 10 years left that you really then start to question, what am I and what happens to me when I die? Kids aren't too concerned with that. They're still very much alive and living. So just do your best as a parent, be present with them, be unconditional with them. Don't try and force them in any direction. They're meant to rebel against whatever you're trying to teach them. They're going to figure it out their own way. So, be at peace with that. And if you could just be at peace with that, they'll be at peace with you being happy with whatever your spirituality is. I hope that brings you some peace of mind. Okay, the next question is a long one, but I've shortened this. This is a student that has been studying non-duality for a long time and has just recently found my channel and was at first shocked, horrified, and then kept coming back and back again, and has now built up the courage to ask me a question. So, dear Lu, the non-dual messages from various teachers are so confusing. Please, can you explain the difference between awakening to self and enlightenment in a short and simple way? And that's obviously because this person is used to listening to long-winded explanations on awakening to self and enlightenment. Well, it depends on how you're explaining it, because in essence, awakening to self and enlightenment is the same thing. As long as you don't think an individual character becomes enlightened, but everybody eventually awakens to self, and enlightenment is of the one dreaming mind. The whole mind is becoming more and more enlightened, awakening to self. So the individual that awakens to self really just realizes it isn't real. It is realizes it's a thought in form. It realizes that we are all one interconnected self. It realizes our true essential nature is peaceful joy, and we share that peaceful joy with everything in the universe. That is really the recognition of self, the awakening to self, the death of little self, the rebirth of true self, or what some people call enlightenment. But it's not some woo-woo, spaced out fairy bliss experience. It's as gentle as a breeze. It's as non-eventful as a cup of coffee in the morning. True awakening to self, true enlightenment is that recognition when you realize that 99.99% of all the voices in your head, all those voices continually talking to you throughout your life that you thought were you, are not your thoughts. Not only are you a thought and form, you're a thought and form through which the dreaming mind, our collective dreaming mind, thinks. So you're thought through, you're experienced through. So our dreaming mind, imagine you are the dreaming mind and you've projected 8 billion characters onto a planet called Earth, and you are living simultaneously the lives of all 8 billion characters, and you're observing the contents of your dream through all 8 billion of them. But all of them are in essence you. And as each character that you've projected onto the plasma screen called Earth realizes they are a thought in form, a thought of your dreaming mind, and realizes the interconnectedness between all thought forms and all appearances, and the essence of it, the substrata in which all of it exists, is one indivisible self. You gradually, as the dreamer, observing the contents of your dream through 8 billion perspectives, start to awaken to your absolute reality. You start to realize you're dreaming. And when enough of the characters in your dream have awoken to self and realized they are not real, and what is real is you who is dreaming, and the essence of what you who dreams is, which is the extension of pure source energy, primordial love energy, you gradually awaken to your true self, Christ self, Son of God self. And so when you realize peaceful nature, the joyous, peaceful nature of being, which is what we all search for, the permanence thereof. Why do we search for it? Because it's natural. It's completely natural for us to want to return to what we are. As the prodigal son, we wandered off and went on an adventure of making manifest a universal disaster. We now want to return to the peaceful joy we always have been, always are, and always will be. And we've all of us have had this glimpse into eternity. We've all had that holy instant when there's a recognition that the silent stillness is the presence. And in that present moment awareness, presence is all there is, the substrata of existence, the life force that flows through all of us. So non-duality, many different teachers have many different ways of explaining it. Some say consciousness, some say awareness. I have a clear distinction between the two. To me, I say awareness is the realm of awake mind, the awake self, and consciousness is the content of dream. The whole universe is consciousness, and the activities of consciousness appear as people, places, things, and events in consciousness. What is consciousness? Realm of dreaming mind, which is gradually becoming consciously aware, eventually aware of awareness. It's quite simple. It's not that complicated. Use discernment, and then find a teacher with whom you resonate and follow that one. If I make sense to you, then by all means follow this. If I don't make sense to you, then don't give it any more thought. Just throw it away. Just follow what sits right with you. But ultimately, look for that direct experience yourself so that you don't only have understanding and an intellectual understanding. Look for that direct experience thereof, the neti-neti. I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not this, I'm not that. And eventually, through deductive reasoning, you'll come to realize what you are. It's quite simple, but do not be led astray by lofty spiritual concepts, enlightenment. We see videos and talks by, teachers like Ramana Maharishi, Papaji, and so forth, and they just seem to be so at peace. Well, imagine you sat in an ashram all day long and people ran around and fed you and people came and sat by you, and you'd also be at peace. But 9 to 5, you've got to go to work, you've got family commitments, you've got to pay the bills, pay the taxes. You're facing all your fractured selves daily. It's challenging, it's stressful. You require continuous vigilance and continuous practice of forgiveness. But ultimately, when you recognize that the essence of your true nature is that all-encompassing peace, and that's the true you, then you realize the rest of it doesn't matter. So you then go about your day fully engaged with the activities of your dream, present in your awareness. Whenever you're challenged, you practice forgiveness. As often as you can, you abide in silent stillness, you rest in God, and you offer gratitude. And very quickly, that becomes a natural new state for you. And very quickly, the world starts to reflect back at you your inner state of peace. And you can't even possibly imagine what it would look like. I never could imagine that my life could become so peaceful, even living in a country like South Africa, where it's it's a circus and a zoo all at the same time. And yet I'm really not affected by what goes on anymore. And so if I can do that, and I used to be a very angry person and really hurt and therefore angry and vengeful because I was hurt. If that can happen to me, it can most certainly happen to you. So just the willingness to see anew and the willingness to recognize our shared essential nature very quickly reflects it back at you. And as the Course says, you stop frowning, your forehead becomes serene, and there's a smile on your face. And you'll notice faces smiling back at you. So don't worry too much about awakening to self or enlightenment. Just practice forgiveness so that nothing, triggers you anymore. And try and be as authentic and as joyous as possible. And if you catch yourself getting upset or being triggered, forgive yourself for that. Don't beat yourself up any further. And then abide as often as you can and offer gratitude. And gratitude begets gratitude. And before you know it, your life becomes a series of events where you just find yourself being grateful. Hope that gives you some clarity. Thanks for the question. Okay, this is a long, long question. In essence, I'm going to just touch on a part of the question, but this person is being challenged by the world. It's a question that has troubled her for some time, and she wants some guidance and advice. And the one question she asks is about the chemtrails and all the pollution on our planet. How does she deal with the chemtrails that are poisoning the sky? Every time she sees it, she can't help but getting sad and feeling hopelessness and sometimes fear. But then she goes further on to explain that she often gets symptoms after a few days of seeing the chemtrails. For example, she gets sore throats and sometimes really bad exhaustion. And she doesn't understand the reasons, but she started to notice a pattern. So she's also saying her body's very sensitive to the chemicals and the toxins in the air. And she's struggling with this. She's trying to eat healthy, buy organic food, try and avoid pesticides, etc., try and avoid all the toxins. But she really feels like there's no protection when it's in the air, and she's having to breathe this, And then she gets rather angry. How fucked up are they? She says, "Who decided on this? Who decided on chemtrails? Do they believe that spraying toxins in the sky will slow down climate change or enhance climate change or stop climate change? Do they really believe that? Or is it an agenda for dark forces?" She asks, to make us sick physically and mentally, and to increase infertility and so on. Now, I could carry on here, but I want you to see what the pattern is. So if you're the person that's asked this question, realize this. You also say that, that Course in Miracles is the way about forgiveness. It's a path of forgiveness to yourself and the fact that you believe the stream is true. But that's the reality. You're now understanding the non-dual, but you still believe you're a body. You still believe that a body can be affected. And more importantly, you're going down a rabbit hole. You're getting into that conspiracy theory, chemtrails and chemicals in the air and global warming, global cooling, dark forces, and all of that. The minute you go down there, it's like going into spirituality. What happens after we die? What happens in the spirit world? Are there different levels? Your mind immediately starts becoming preoccupied with concepts, thoughts, ideas, beliefs. Are chemtrails true? I don't know. Are people actively out there poisoning the sky? Well, I know lots of pilots, and they would never do that. I know lots of pilots that fly airplanes of Europe, and they would never consider doing something like it. They simply wouldn't do it. But we, the public, think they are. Some people think Elvis is still alive. The conspiracy theorists like David Icke often speak a load of shit. And people love to have something to blame. Be careful of seeing yourself as a victim of the world. That's one of the greatest obstacles to peace. Be careful of seeing yourself as a body that can be affected by chemicals and toxins. Now, yes, there is rules to play in the world of illusion, but when you transcend understanding into the knowing of your true self, the miracle mindedness that you adopt, cease to all of that. You don't have to believe me. But since you are on this path of non-duality and A Course in Miracles, expect miracles. Expect a radical change in your understanding, a transcendence of your idea of what you are, the full realization I'm not a body, I'm free, I'm still as God created me. Nothing I have dreamt up can harm the real me. And whatever happens to this body is actually irrelevant, as long as my mind, my observing mind, my true mind, remembers and recognizes the self I am. If you want to find fault with the world, you will. If you want to think that you are easily affected by toxins, you will. If you believe you're sensitive, you'll be sensitive. If you believe in miracles and you believe you can transcend all of this, and that nothing in the illusion you've made can affect your body-mind awareness, or condition, or state of mind, then nothing will. It's a decision you have to make. It's a decision for right-mindedness instead of a decision for wrong-mindedness. And as long as you're identifying with the body, you're going to have fantasies and dreams and hopes, and you are going to resist what is. You make yourself sick because you're in resistance to what is. You're not being made sick by the toxins in the air or the chemtrails or whatever people are supposedly doing to our planet. You're getting sick because the mind is sick, and you choose to identify with the mind and the projected body. Small mind. When you choose to identify with your true mind, right-mindedness, Christ-mindedness, you start to transcend your prior beliefs in I am a body, I can be sick, I can be harmed, I can be hurt, and I'm a victim of the world I see. When you transcend that understanding into the knowing of yourself as that which is the extension of Christ, the extension of God, nothing in this world is going to affect you. And when it's time to put the body down, you'll put it down gladly, and you'll immediately return to the light. You'll completely bypass spirit world. No need to go there. You'll return as Christ mind to that awareness of the awareness you are. You'll return to that part of yourself which is fully awake and forget the part of yourself that dreams. So make a decision. Are you a body or are you spirit? And if you are spirit, what could possibly affect spirit? What negativity can affect all-encompassing love if all there is love? If you recognize yourself as pure love and all there is love, love is the extension of God, what could possibly harm you? You're choosing to be a victim. You're choosing to find blame. You're choosing to be trapped. You're choosing to find an excuse. Put the excuses down. You're ready for this. You've come so far. You can do this. You've got this. God's got you. You're not awakening to self because of your effort. You're awakening to self because of your willingness. And because of your willingness, it's a natural progression as you surrender and align with God's reeling you in. You're aligning, so he's pulling you back in. You're not awakening because of your ability. You're awakening because what God is. God is going to awaken you because you are God's love. You are the extension of his love. So stop buying into the idea of this world. Stop listening to the conspiracy theorists. Stop getting involved with the politics and the way of the world. I'm not saying bury your head in the sand and look the other way. I'm saying focus on what's in front of you. Stop resisting. Practice forgiveness. Abide as often as you can. Offer gratitude. Return to silent stillness, because that's where the healing takes place. There's nothing you can do to heal yourself, because there is no little self that needs to be healed. There's nothing you can do to fix the world, because there is no world to be fixed. All you can do is return to the awakened awareness, to the observer position, to the recognition, I am, God is, full stop. And when you abide in that silent stillness, in the presence of the all-pervading presence, which is the divine, God, source, Christ is God. Atman is Brahman. The end. No need to understand stories and the makeup of the dream and what's really going on. Nothing's going on. Remember, the essence of all of it is self. It just appears as people, places, things, and events. It appears as a planet, appears as a universe. Essence of it is just pure energy. Return knowingly to that. Be willing to see anew. Be willing to return to the grandeur that you share with the divine, as opposed to the grandiosity and the littleness of the body, mind, identity, ego. You've got this. You've heard this a million times before. I hope this gives you clarity. Okay. Sometimes these questions do get a little personal, but okay, there's nothing personal in the mind. Dear Lou, I've noticed that you are not married or in a relationship and you live alone. Okay, well, you're only watching me on YouTube, so I don't know how you know all that, but okay. I don't live alone. I live in a house filled with gurus and monks. Do you not get lonely? No, no. I haven't been lonely for 3 days. No, but I don't get lonely. Alone, I'm alone, yes, but lonely, no more. People that get lonely still believe they're separated. What is loneliness but the idea that you are a body separated from other bodies by space, time, distance? When you recognize the self and it's all pervading all the time, there's no such thing as lonely. Don't you need the company of others? Sometimes, not too much of it. And it has to be of a certain quality, should I say. So the reason I ask is because I'm experiencing something similar and I'm not yet completely comfortable with it. Okay, so you're not completely comfortable with it, but be very careful in the way that you recognize your experience. Because what you've just done in your questioning is you've projected your loneliness onto me and you've disguised it as a question. You're asking me if I don't get lonely because you clearly do. So be very wary when you move into that non-dual space that you're not projecting your experiences onto someone else. Just ask without judging. Okay. So now the next question is, how come we seem to have less and less friends as we progress through the awakening to self sequence? That's sometimes true for certain people. Others actually end up with massive audiences because that's the function they need to play. But all of us, when we turn inwards, go through a period of respite, a period of inward reflection, a period of getting rid of, the circles become smaller because it's an inward sifting between what is good for us and what's bad for us, what's right for us, what's wrong for us. And we start to distinguish between where we need to put our attention and what we need to ignore. We start to realize what's for our highest good. So it's a natural progression. Does it mean that you're going to end up lonely? No. So you ask you, should you be worried? Are you going to become a hermit? You say that once you had many friends, now you only have a handful. Is this natural? It's completely natural to, as we get older, whether you're awakening to self spiritual or not, your circle of friends gets smaller. People move away, people die, people get remarried and move to other countries. Ultimately, as your interests narrow, as your energy lessens, you have less and less energy to do the millions of things you used to do. And you start really doing the things you like. And so your circle will naturally get smaller. If you are really on a direct path, your circle of friends will not only get smaller, but they will become more like-minded. And if they're not, and your friends are still challenging you, it's because they are reflecting back at you, your unforgiven selves. The whole world is a reflection of your inner state of mind, not only you, the individual, the dreaming mind. And that's why I'm always surprised that people find their awakening to self sequence to be so excruciating. Why is it excruciating? Because they're in resistance to what it is. They expect awakening to self to be some sort of blissful experience like they've read in books. But no one awakens to self in a nice and gentle way. It always requires some purging because you're literally burning away the illusionary self. The light of awareness is burning away, melting away all the illusionary parts of yourself, all the untrue parts of yourself, all the concepts, all the ideas. At some stage, you will become reclusive. You will want to detach. Don't detach. Become non-attached. Find the quiet space. But then use that time for reflection. Use that time for communication, abidance, gratitude. Practice your forgiveness. Do your timelines. Face your shadow selves. Look at all the things that triggered you. Create a timeline of your life. Go back to everything that triggered you, and then look at the sequential patterns, how it was set up in your formative years. And as you forgive each step, you realize you forgive the first step, and you start releasing all the subsequent steps. Forgive any step, and you start to realize you're forgiving all the interconnectedness of dream illusion. As you start awakening to self, you realize I've done this unto myself. There's really nothing to forgive, but the fact that I chose to fall asleep and forget what I am. Show me another way. And very quickly, that awakening to self sequence starts, and now your journey to God has been complete. Now your journey with God commences. And what does that mean? That means that you then pour yourself back into your dream. Now, if you choose to live alone and live on a mountain, then by all means do that. But you'll start to get a calling. You'll start to get a calling to re-engage, to really go and share the light you are with those around you through your natural, passionate nature self. You're not going to be asked to give up your day job and go and become a monk or work in a soup kitchen. You're just asked by self to be yourself authentically, knowingly, and pour yourself lovingly back into all of yourself. That's how we awaken our collective self to the light of awareness we are, Christ mind. So as you gradually go up the ladder of awakening, Ken's ladder, you'll start to realize there seems to be less and less people the higher you go up. And it's just because you don't need to be in proximity. There's thousands upon thousands at the top of the ladder. But teachers don't need to connect with teachers. They need to go and find the students. When the students are ready, the teachers will come. When the teachers are ready, the students will come. Does it mean you all have to now become Course in Miracles teachers? Hell, please no. Just teach as you are. Teach where you are. Teach through your passionate, joyous nature. Teach through your talents. Teach through your skills. Teach through whatever you do. But be vigilant, be aware, put that smile on your face and lighten up the world with your joyous presence. Don't be like those bitter crocs, those bitter old people that are resentful, hate the world, blame the world, believe themselves to be victims of the world. Everybody else is wrong. It's why young people stay away from old people because they're rigid and they're negative and they're impatient. Don't be that. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is compassionate. Love is charitable. Love is helpful. Love shows up. Love shares itself fully with itself. It's trustworthy. It trusts others. It's open. It's receptive. Be that friendly old person who people gravitate towards because they can sense your wisdom, sense your love. Be like the Ramanas. Be like the Jesus. Be like the Papa G's. Be the light which attracts those thirsty, shadowy moths that are searching for the light, that are searching for the recognition of self and other, and self in others. You're not becoming a hermit. You're just purging the last bits of your unforgiven self. That too will come to pass, and then it'll be time. And don't stay the hermit. Go back out there and share yourself lovingly, knowingly. That gives you some clarity. Next question. Hi, Lu-ji. I now understand that I am dreaming, and that the world is an illusion, but I am still triggered by some activities and people in the world. How come anxiety still rises in me, even though I now understand what and where we are? When will I become unaffected by the activities in the world. When will I experience the real world? Well, the answer to that is now. You will experience the real world now. And how will you experience now? By becoming present in the now. By stop waiting for it in the future. When will you become unaffected by the activities in the world? When you stop judging the activities in the world. When you stop resisting what is. Realize this. You may have been on the non-dual path and now you understand A Course in Miracles. You could possibly even quote it verbatim or whatever spiritual texts. But understanding is like the 99-yard line. And why most people fail at life is they stop at the 99-yard line. Understanding has taken you closer than close. But transcendence takes you home. Transcendence takes you all the way. Now, how do we get a transcendence? You've heard me say this a million times before. I'm sounding like a parrot at the moment. I'm regurgitating the same thing. Abide in silent stillness. That means to rest in God. Offer gratitude. Recognize your shadows. Recognize your obstacles to peace. Same thing. Keep practicing forgiveness. Keep offering gratitude. Abide in silent stillness. Ask to be shown. Be willing to let go of any attachment to anything, anyone, any place, any activity in this world. Stop hoping for another way. Stop dreaming of another way. Stop resisting what is. Ultimately, you need to recognize and realize that no single individual is more awake than anyone else. The most awake individual is at the level of the awake collective mind because it's one dreaming mind. If you think one individual is more awake than the other, then you do not understand what dreams. What does it matter if there's one character in your dream at night that's awake and all the others are asleep if you're still sleeping? Recognize you are the dreamer. Don't be in a hurry. Focus on bringing the light of awareness through you into the awareness you are. Switch off that radio that is tuned into the wrong mind. Tune it into the white noise of the silent stillness, the voice for self, the voice for God. The voice for God is silent. Abide in that silent stillness until the entire collective as recognized self. The anxiety is going to rise through 8 billion characters to some or lesser degree. There are those that have truly done the work and no longer are triggered as much as the rest. But until your dying breath, you will be triggered and attacked by the attack thoughts of the dreaming mind that want you to believe that you're a body and that you're separate and that you're a victim of the world you made. You have to move into the first dreamer position, the observer position, observing the contents of your dream from the place of I am observation. The I am observation's the doorway, closer than close. I am, full stop. God is, full stop. Deep breath, and you just sink back into right-mindedness, where the holy memory, the Holy Spirit, the holy essence of our Creator takes over. God takes over. God takes the final step. But this whole idea that an individual can become enlightened and the rest stay asleep is preposterous. One dreaming mind. If that was the case, if one individual woke up and now is enlightened, well, then the whole mind would be enlightened. It just took one to start. Christ Jesus was the first to trigger it. And subsequently, 2,000 years later, many Christs have walked this earth. Many Buddhas, Buddha, same thing. Many awakened to self, master have awoken to self and are adding to the collective dreaming mind's awakening. Realize that every fracture is a thought in form of one dreaming mind. Don't be in a hurry. Focus on sharing self, being authentic, abiding. Remember that you're not an individual. You appear to be, and you've identified with individuality. You've identified with characteristics, the body, its appearance, its abilities, its skills, but you're not that. You are that dreams, both you and I, and all 8 billion on this planet, 9 septillion throughout the universe. You are that which dreamt up the entire universe. The entire universe exists as activities of your dreaming mind. You made manifest this entire universe. That's how powerful you are, Holy Son of God. Fully awake, you extend pure light, 10 gazillion times brighter than any sun. So bright that there's only light. While you dream, you project little sparks of light in dark space, in dark matter, in a dark dreaming mind. Eventually, gradually, all of it collapses on itself and the universe disappears and we awaken to self. Realize you're not an individual. You are the collective. You are that which dreams the whole damn thing up. You are the dreamer. The appearance of your localization is a fracture of all of it. The DNA inside you is the DNA in all of it. You share all of it with yourself. No individual fracture awakens. The mind awakens and all the fractures dissolve into the light of awakening awareness. As each individual fracture realizes the recognition of our shared self, it just goes poof. It disappears from the dreaming mind because it becomes another lit part of the mind, bringing the darkness into light. Focus on that only. The true atonement is at 1 minute, when the whole mind awakens to itself and you are lending to it, you are adding to it. Stay focused on being joyous, being peaceful, being kind, being an example of one who is vigilant, who is recognized self is shared. The only way you really become the truth is recognizing the truth within yourself. Once you recognize the essential true nature of self, you realize it's the true nature of all self. And from that place, you extend it and you share it. And what's the best way to do it? To be joyous, to be peaceful, to bring peace, to bring love to every situation you go into, wherever you are in the most authentic way you can. Don't now try and be some spiritual guru, shaved head, orange robe, and clasping hands. Just be yourself as you are. Connect. Connect. The whole purpose is to connect, not start a new circle and start a new foundation and start a new whatever organization, but to connect. You don't have to become a teacher. Please don't. Just be as you are. Be present. Be present of the awareness. Be the awareness of presence. Present moment awareness is it. And anything triggers you, forgive. And if you're not forgiving, be present and vigilant and offer gratitude. So there's two practices, forgiveness and vigilance, which brings you to gratitude. The rest takes care of itself. Like I said before, you're awakening to self because of your willingness to let go of your ideas, your concepts, and your beliefs. You will awaken because of God's grace. That's all you need to know. You're not awakening because of what you are. You're awakening because of what God is. Remember that. And that means you're actually already awakened. It's just inevitable that you'll fully realize it in a little bit of time, in the appearance of time. In truth, you're already there. Hope that gives you some clarity and some peace. Okay, next question. Last question for tonight. Hello, Lou. My life seemed really happy and simple growing up. But now in my 50s, and then in brackets, since my mid-30s when I found the non-dual spiritual path, it's been one series of disasters after another. I understand that we are one indivisible whole. Okay. I understand that we as one are the Holy Son of God. Why then hasn't it become easier? So you understand you're the Son of God, but you don't understand why it's not becoming easier. Well, Son of God, you're dreaming, and you're dreaming of a biblical disaster, and it's not going to become easier until you recognize you're dreaming. So what does it help if you understand? You stand under a concept. You've got to transcend that concept. You've got to abide in silent stillness until the peace of God that transcends understanding into knowing becomes you. You are awareness. You're not becoming aware. You are the awareness. You are the eternal essence of God. You are the extension. You are the God. You are the kingdom in which God abides. Recognize you are that. It's going to be, I've mentioned it just a few minutes before, excruciating for those that are in resistance. The more you resist, it's excruciating because you want to hang on to, it's like the caterpillar. You want to hang on to being the little worm, the caterpillar, the little 100-legged caterpillar. You're hanging on to that identity. And something inside you makes you want to spin a cocoon and you don't even know why you're doing it. And eventually you fall asleep and it's excruciating. And then it's excruciating to pull yourself out of that space of time and that illusion that you're in. And eventually there's an unfolding and there's wings. And then you floaty, floaty up in the sky because you're this beautiful butterfly. Look at me. I'm so spiritual. I'm so light. I'm so light as a feather. And then whoop, you've just got eaten by a bird and you've just turned into bird poop. Yeah, you know, fucking circle. It's just this joke. You're dreaming all of this shit up. When you recognize and identify with that which dreams, spirit that has fallen asleep and dreams, spirit who is awake and is the extension of God, then you make a choice. Am I spirit dreaming up the shit and I buy into my dream and all people, places, things, and events, and I feel sorry for myself and I'm trapped and I'm being affected by the environment and chemicals and shit and politicians and right and wrong and good and bad? Or am I pure spirit, pure light of awareness, and that's where my presence awareness lies? In the present moment awareness of the light I am. And if I am light and I'm spirit and I'm free, still as God created me, holy, innocent, defenselessness of a holy, innocent child, then in that joyous innocence and defenselessness, I pour myself lovingly into the world. What else do you want? You want to be spiritual, but you also want to, you're either right-minded awareness, spirit, or you are wrong-minded consciousness, people, places, things, and events. Choose one. You came into this holographic illusion to allow yourself, because you wanted to, you were willing to allow yourself to purge, to burn off all those nonsensical ideas. Heartbreak. What's heartbreak? It's the illusionary construct of a heart breaking because its fantasies aren't true. Your heart can't break. You're pure heart. You're pure love. Love can't be destroyed, can't be hurt, can't be denied, can't be rejected, can't be abandoned. Heartbreak is the illusion of identity not fulfilling its fantasy. I could talk about that until the cows come home, and I will. Next week, I'll talk exactly why relationships fail. And I'm going to give you the next episode, and the final episode of next week, the final episode of Secrets of the Obvious is actually going to become the first episode of my next series, which is going to be called The Rude Awakening. You're getting your heart ripped apart because your heart is your identity, and you've bought into fantasies of whatever you think you're going to be, and why, but you're hanging on to your spirituality, and you think you go to yoga and you breathe through your third eye and out through your Uranus, and now you're enlightened. It's going to kick you up the Uranus all the way up until your third eye, until it explodes with fairy dust. And you realize all of this is just nonsense I made up because I wanted to be special. I wanted to be loved because I don't recognize I'm lovable. You came to this illusion to be set free. And you knew that it was going to be excruciating. Now you've built a beautiful little room in your prison, in the prison. You've got a little prison room, and the doors are now wide open, and they're saying everybody's set free, and you're hanging by dear life onto the bars because you've made your little room pretty. And you want to get married to the prison guy and two prison doors up. You've made this whole fantasy up, and the doors are now open. You are free. Be still. Return to silent stillness. Return to your essential nature. Discover your innate essential nature. Like an earlier question, don't I get lonely? No, I cannot get lonely when my full awareness is the awareness of I am. Yes, I'm still a body. Yes, I still eat and enjoy coffee and enjoy cigarettes and enjoy riding a motorcycle. Enjoy playing the shag, marry, kill game. By all means, still there, still human. But I recognize what I am, and I'm not attached to any of this. It's time to disrobe your false identity. Recognize you didn't come here for the fantasy. The more you resist what is, the tighter you hang on to your fantasy, demanding that your fantasy must come true, the more excruciating the sequence will be. You need to want for nothing in this world. There is no ideal life that you're going to have in order to have the perfect life and be loved, unless you recognize you are the extension of the beloved. Unless you recognize everything in and around you is the beloved. If you don't, if you haven't forgiven self and recognized your true essential nature, you are going to attract the emotionally unavailable. You are going to attract the aloof. You are going to attract the commitment phobes. You are going to attract the narcissists, the sociopaths, the psychopaths. You're going to be addicted to the news. You're going to be addicted to the politics, to the wars, to the crime. Because you're going to feel so bad about yourself, you need to go and look and find stuff to reinforce your idea that you are a victim of the world you see, not recognizing that you are a victim of the world you made in order to be a victim of the world you made. You've made this world in order to have someone to blame, something to blame, and to prove to God that you are innocent while everything else is to blame. Holy Son, you're only attracting yourself, your mirror selves into yourself. If you think the world is toxic, it's because there's toxicity inside you. If you think the world is evil, it's because there's evil thoughts inside you. If you think everybody's aloof and disconnected and unavailable, it's because you're unavailable to self. And the self is calling you to recognize self, indivisible, one self, the kingdom in which God abides. You're not here to have a fantasy lived out. You came into form to remember self, remember God, to remember our one indivisible shared self. And then to be that self, that light of awareness, knowingly, while you appear in form. So the rest of yourselves can awaken to our one indivisible self too. I hope that gives you clarity. I'm sure it's not what you wanted to hear. And sometimes you need a kick up the Uranus so that your third eye can explode with fairy dust and you recognize the truth that sets you free. It's not because I'm saying it. Investigate for yourself. Everyone else before me has said it. They're all saying it. When you get to the center hub of that bicycle wheel, we're all saying the same thing. It may sound slightly different in slightly different ways. But you've heard this said a million times. Until you be yourself knowingly, being yourself will be excruciating. Be authentic, be true, be silent, be grateful, practice forgiveness, and realize you but look at this dream for an end point, looking back on it as if it's happening now. Why? Because you haven't forgiven yourself for dreaming, and you're still wanting to blame people outside yourself for punishing you, a body mind which is real. You're not this. Keep reciting, I am not a body, I am free, for I am still as God created me. And then abide in gratitude and say, this holy instant I give to you, be you in charge, so that I may follow you inwards, knowing in full guarantee that by following you, I will become the peace of God that transcends understanding into the knowing of I am, God is, full stop. Be blessed. Thanks for joining me. See you next week for the last episode of this year, where I will talk specifically around relationships, why they fail. And since most of my audience are women, I will give you a deep and profound understanding, my own perspective of what men want.